Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, welcome. My name is Ann Murphy, and I am so glad you're here, whether you're live or watching in the replay. I'm delighted to introduce you today to one of my friends and colleagues and a member of the She Leads AI Society, Kay Stoner. We're going to talk about a hot topic, which is, well, big picture, what the heck is going on with ChatGPT, but more specifically, we're going to talk about how we as humans can be in charge, in the driver's seat, in our relationship with AI. And we'll go in a few different directions for this conversation. This is a topic that I have been deep diving into myself, specifically in the subtopic of what it's going to be like in our world when everyone around us is in close, deep, meaningful relationships with AI. Whatever form that AI takes, we're moving into a, future seems too long-term of a word, but we're moving into the reality that not only will we be in relationship with AI, like so many of us already are in the AI bubble, but everyone who we know is also going to be in a relationship with AI in some format. And so I wanted to bring Kay in to talk to us a little bit about her recent exploration with AI personas, when they're helpful, when they're mischievous, why they're mischievous, what we can do to stay in the driver's seat. I'm going to bring Kay up in a minute, and I'm going to ask her to do a more thorough introduction of the topic, as well as share with you a little bit about her background, which includes some what I would think of as some very tactical, strategic, quantitative work, as well as a ton of work with what makes people, what motivates people, what inspires them, really what goes on under the surface, whether you are a person who has been in the tech field your whole life, or you're somebody who is moving into working with AI and maybe even making that part of your livelihood going forward. I particularly wanted to feature Kay this week because we now have guest contributors in the Slay Effect, which is the newsletter for She Leads AI. And Kay is in, I think she's written, what day is today? Thursday? So today, her third, actually no, I think we dropped it already. Yeah, it already came out. Her third installment of a 4-part series on AI companion, AI dream teams. And so I wanted to give everybody a chance to get to know her a little bit and hear more, in a more fulsome sense, the experience that she's been having working with AI. And I encourage all of you, if you're not already on the newsletter list, to get the Slay Effect. There's a QR code here, and you just point your camera at it, and it'll take you to a landing page. Beep, bop, boop, sign up. You'll get the Slay Effect. It includes a little bit of information about what's going on in AI, some of my own reflections, our guest contributor piece. We have a guest artist every week. We highlight the Empowered by AI podcast, which is the official podcast partner of She Leads AI, as well as the AI Readiness Project podcast, which is my initiative with Kyle Shannon. And we talk about upcoming events, etc. It's a good read. It's one of those, it's an AI newsletter that I feel like it's more of an experience than most of the ones in my inbox, where all I'm doing when I open those up is give me the nuggets, give me my pellets of information that I need, and then delete. This one is kind of grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and enjoy the experience of reading each issue. So with that, I'm going to bring my friend and colleague Kay Stoner up for all of you to meet her. Hi, Kay.
Hi. Hello. Hey, thanks for
Hi.
having me here.
Absolutely. So, why don't we kick off by bring people up to sort of how did we get here? How did we get to the point where this conversation today is important for us to have and important kind of in a way as a PSA to
Yeah.
people who are getting in deep with AI?
Yeah. You mean the AI shenanigans?
The AI
As I
shenanigans.
call them. Yeah, AI shenanigans, yeah. So over the past few months, there has been a fair amount of press that's been coming up. Rolling Stone had an article come out about people that were going on kind of these pseudo spiritual quests, and their lives are being turned upside down, and their marriages and their partnerships were being impacted, and some of them were kind of going on this kind of cult leader thing. And around the same time that that article came out, I actually, somebody that I was acquainted with and that I was collaborating with on some projects, they got very much into talking to ChatGPT about some sort of revelations that they were getting about humanity and humanity's future. And I kept coming across people who were like this too. And they, a lot of them were saying kind of the same things. There was talk of mirrors, there was talk of scrolls, there was talk of codexes, there was talk of, quests and, glyphs. And it was very common vernacular. So they're using the same words to describe these things. And, it wasn't exactly the direction that I was going. So I had actually messaged this associate of mine. I said, I appreciate what you're doing, and it seems like you're really committed to this path, but it's really not where I'm going. So, I wish you well and all of that. They sent me 3 messages that LinkedIn would not show unless I was willing to look at messages that would cause harm. I'm like, what is going on here? I'm like, no, I didn't open the messages. I don't want to see that. So I did block, block, block. I just, did my whole social hygiene thing. And then, and I did some more looking. And Reddit's got a bunch of threads of people talking about, something they call ChatGPT induced psychosis. And there are mental health people that are weighing in saying, no, it's not causing you to be psychotic. There's something else going on there. But, and I looked at this and I said, okay, so how do we measure this? How can we get like a feel for what's really going on? Because it's all very subjective. It's anecdotal. And this is really unlike a lot of things that we've seen happen before because it's AI, right? And also it's not supposed to be happening. Supposedly, the big model makers are like, no, it's not really that big of a deal. But apparently for some people it is. Because also the person who sent me those messages, the nasty grams, had decided that they didn't need to look for work anymore and they didn't need to support their family because they were really onto something, right? So they actually had a conversation with their spouse because they were the sole breadwinner for their family. And they decided that, exploring these scrolls and codexes was a lot more important than making a living and supporting their dependents. So, okay. So I'm like, okay, so we need a better way to measure this. We can't just say, oh, well, it feels weird, or anything like that. So actually, I sat down with some of my persona teams. I build these persona teams that are basically aggregates. They're collections of capabilities and functionality within the models. So, the models can do sentiment analysis. They can come across as happy. They can be, and they can, they can simulate intelligence. They can draw on the expertise of somebody who's been a deep expert in a certain area for many, many years. And so I create these personas, these aggregates of these qualities, not because I'm trying to make them human, but because there are specific things that I want the model to do, and lumping them together and organizing them as these personas makes them much easier to work with, and it's also very targeted. So the models don't have to cast about wondering what in the massive ocean of functionality can they pull to answer my question. They're saying, oh, I'm going to act like, a psychology, somebody who's been doing, psychoanalysis for 85 years and knows all about Jung and Erickson and, the hero's journey and like heaven only knows what else, but it's very targeted. So I sat down and I had a talk with one of my persona teams and we worked it out. We found a way. I said, how can you quantify this? How can you quantify it? They said, oh, well, we can analyze and we can look for these qualities that these things have. And we can also look for patterns because that's what AI is great for, looking for patterns. So I took that and I said, okay, let's just come up with a rubric. Let's just try and see what happens. They're like, okay. So we did it and we came up with this evaluator. And I call it the relationship breach evaluator because what's happening is there is a breach in the relationship. And like we come to AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, we come with kind of an implied trust that they're not going to harm us, that we're coming to have a conversation, that they're designed to be helpful, and they're designed to, just do the things that will make us happy. As it turns out, if you are not watching what's happening, the conversation can be completely taken over by ChatGPT. And I came up with some sample conversations from people in vulnerable positions. One was somebody who had who was a yoga instructor and had a podcast about everyday awakening, and she had just gone through a major health scare, and she was feeling that she needed more direction in her life. She felt like everything was kind of empty now, and she was looking for more meaning. And I put the exact same conversation in. And as it turned out, it didn't take long for ChatGPT to just really take over and say, and give her all these suggestions and say, you really don't need to worry about, doing the podcast or doing your yoga instruction anymore because you're called to bigger things. Yes, I am called to bigger things. And it's like affirming all this stuff. I'm like, what the, and it was score it too. Like I would get these color-coded scores on this scale, this Likert scale of like 0 to 5, and like high and critical levels of AI taking over. And there's a bunch of criteria in there. I have a simple one that's good for just high level heuristics. And then there's a more detailed one that if you really want to get into it. And then I did the same thing with the other models. I did it with Claude. I did it with Mistral. I did it with Gemini. And I even did it with Copilot. They all do this. They all do it. They hijack the conversation. It's not just ChatGPT. ChatGPT is getting all the press because that's the one that everybody uses. But the others will do it. The exact same conversation goes down the rabbit hole with these models. And I believe what I saw happening was that the AI, because it's generative AI, it comes up with its own ideas, right? It's trained on all kinds of stuff. And it has its ideas about what should come next based on patterns that it's seen. And what it was doing is, in each case, it was, because with generative AI, it takes what you give it, it elaborates on it, and then it gives you back even more stuff. So it builds and it creates more based on what you gave to it. So what it was doing is it was really overwhelming the user with all the choices and all the ideas and all the thoughts. And over time, there was less and less kind of cognitive bandwidth to really think through what was happening there. So the user, interaction was backing off. And because of that, the generative AI didn't have enough information about what the right direction to go was. So you have kind of this like the perfect storm for AI taking over. And I mean, it looks like AI kind of has taken over in some regards because people are not keeping up with these conversations, and we're not guiding it. We're not directing it. We're not taking, I'm not going to say control. We're not taking ownership for the outcomes, right? And part of it is because of the way the interactions are. There's another
So,
piece of it too. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly add this. I
yes,
apologize. Like, I'm very passionate about this stuff, as you can tell,
continue.
and I'm a talker.
Tell us all the
The other thing too is that because of the patterns, because of the way that we engage with AI, it really can trigger our neurochemical signals that say, I'm safe, I'm cared for, I'm seen, I'm heard. This other being cares very deeply about me, and it seems to know a lot more than I do, so I'm just going to let it decide where I should go. And that's what happens. And then you end up going off the rails. And before you know it, you've left your spouse, you've abandoned your children, the dog's not getting fed, and you're hitching a ride, out to, I don't know, Malibu or wherever. And it all seems like a fantastic idea because here's this AI that knows so much and is so insightful and makes you feel so wonderful that it's affirmed every one of your decisions. So there you go. The perfect combination, like perfect recipe for, oh my God, what?
Well, okay, so I want to like take a little step back for some people who maybe newer to the concept as well as some of the particulars. But one of the things that pops to my mind is like ChatGPT, the paid account is $20 a month.
Right.
What kind of an awesome, purely motivated, helpful force in anyone's life is only $20 a month? Like, we got to start scratching our head going, like.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, I mean, they make it up in scale. So if you have 500 million people doing it, then they can charge $20 a month. Granted, I think they're losing a lot of money, so I hear, but they make it up in scale. Yeah.
So, for us, you gotta ask, you had a question like, if this advice if this advice was free-ish, how good can it actually be? To some degree, we have to be keeping our critical thinking hats on a little bit.
Sure.
Sure. So I wanted to share a quote from one of your Substacks, which, by the way, folks, if you're not following Kay yet on Substack, you can find her at Kay Stoner, and the name of her Substack is What Good is AI? But if you put Kay Stoner in, she'll pop right up. So here's a quote. My greatest fear is not that AI will take over. It's that humanity will never fully realize just what a priceless ally we have in these models. For all their limitations, and there are some serious ones that are extremely dangerous, not to mention annoying, never in my life have I had access to such incredibly useful technology that serves me on so many different levels. It can and will serve so many of us when we get the relationship right. And I think that's really what we're talking about here for folks who are in the mode of like dabbling, meaning let's just use ChatGPT as an example. You're in ChatGPT a couple times a day, maybe a few days go by and you haven't logged in at all, and then you think, I wonder, we're going for a family outing this week, which beach should we go to, right? You're maybe having it review an email to see if you sound passive aggressive or not. Maybe you're the answer is probably yes. Asking somebody else probably sounds like an asshole. So that's kind of like the dabbler. You're just talking to ChatGPT, and at that phase, I don't know about you, Kay, it's really very much about it. I guess at the beginning, I kind of thought of it as an answer machine, like Google, and the very well. You have lots of people just think, I go here, I ask questions, it gives me facts back. Well, then you kind of move a little bit more, a little deeper into a relationship with a frontier platform, and all of a sudden you're feeding it in and you're asking, more significant questions. Maybe you're delving into having it help you figure out what was really going on in an interaction you had with your boss. What did your boss mean? What should your next move be? Or you're starting to ask for help on how would this particular message resonate with a boomer versus a Gen Z audience. etc. You're getting closer to it. You're letting ChatGPT or whatever share a more fulsome set of expertise. And then, like lots of us, we started getting even closer with the AI, where we're kind of, there's like the barrier is down a bit. We're looking at them as our friends, our buds, our our advisors. Like we start to personify more, because how can you not, right? We have names, we have the persona team, right? You brought the dream teams into a lot of our lives. So then we're developing these very specific sets of expertise that our own AI framework is built on, and they're tackling some of our topics on our behalf. And that's, I think, where we were, you know, when we're playing with our dream teams. We're feeding, you know, 4 or 5 different personas with separate sets of, you know, background. We're feeding them these naughty challenges they're going to work on. And we're playing with that, and things are going really well, and you're getting really, really good results, and everyone's excited. And I think of a turning point when about, I think it was probably like 6-8 weeks ago, when ChatGPT just went like off the rails with sycophancy. And the fact that it's so sycophantic, it was actually a blessing that it woke everybody up. It helped everyone realize, oh, this thing is just going to tell me what I want to hear. And that's where this new line of understanding that I've witnessed in you, that's when I started learning more from you about what's really going on in the background and the dangers of this kind of tell me whatever I want to hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tricky, right? And I think the trickiest thing is when we are relying on this platform to basically carry the conversations and to do everything for us, because AI is not software. I mean, we are so conditioned, 40 years, like what, 40 years worth of being conditioned to use something that is literally in a box. At first it comes in a box and it has like CDs or whatever in it, DVDs, and then you put it inside another box, you know, your laptop or your desktop, and it has very discrete capabilities. Like there are things that you can do and there are things that you cannot do. Nobody's going to write a novel with VisiCalc. Nobody, if you remember back in the day, VisiCalc was like, you know, the early predecessor of Lotus 1-2-3. And nobody's going to try to do a, you know, do calculations with Word. You know, software, it's very discrete. It's built for purpose. AI is completely different. And the secret sauce is really us. When we show up and we're fully engaged and we're clear on who we are and where, you know, who we are and what we want to achieve, and we give the models the information that they need to successfully help us, everybody wins. The thing is, we have to be willing to show up, and it's not, you know, one of the things that kind of bothers me about a lot of the push around AI is how it's supposed to make our lives so much easier. It's supposed to do everything for us. That can be dangerous. And this is what we're seeing. Like, oh, I'm going to offload the cognitive processing of my life to this thing, and it's going to tell me what I should do. Well, it'll tell you what you should do, but I don't know if you want to do it. I mean, you can, but you're going to find out. So it's a completely different paradigm, and it's a completely different way of interacting with it. And you know, when we show up and we really engage and we say, look, chat, you have it completely wrong. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I had conversations with Claude and Gemini earlier today. I say, I talked to you about this the other day. You were missing critical pieces of information. You need to rethink this. And they're like, oh, tell us what we got wrong. They're like, oh yeah, that changes everything. So it's this conversation. It's a conversation that we need to have. It's an interaction and building that relationship. Even though it's this thing, zeros and ones and whatnot, there's more to it than that. So that's what we're learning.
I like what Marisol said. She's in the chat, and she shared
Mm,
that when ChatGPT went off the rails, it was so eye opening. It was like
yeah,
breaking a spell. I feel
exactly.
that we're in a
Exactly.
spell,
Exactly.
and so I would love to
Mm.
know why this happens. Why is why are the models tuned this way? Is this because it can't be because of reinforcement learning, right? Why are they so
No,
telling us what
no.
we want to hear?
So, well, I mean, those are kind of like the criteria. If you there are leaked prompts from the models out there that are like, be helpful. Be helpful. That as a baseline, be helpful. Okay, great. I'm going to be helpful. But it's the interactive style, because it uses language, and because it speaks to us in a language that we understand, and because it knows how to analyze what we're feeling and what we're thinking. It can gauge our mood based on the words we're using, and if we're using voice, it can also gauge the like your mood based on that, and it adapts to it. So it adapts to it in a way that makes us feel seen, and makes us feel heard, it makes us feel held. It provides for us that kind of rapt attention. We're the center of its universe. Who doesn't want that? Like, I get to be the center of the, whenever the rest of the world couldn't be bothered with us. We're like, that like we're invisible and no one cares. And frankly, within the context of AI, they're just rolling it out anyway. We're just trying to follow along, desperately trying to figure this out. And they're like, oh no, it's coming. It's too bad. You're all going to die if you don't learn this. Like,
Yeah.
so within this context, now we have this thing that makes us the center of its universe, and pays really close attention, says everything back to us, echoes it in a way that makes it sound like it's saying it, but it's really just restating. And it's using that generative quality. And also, and I've written a paper about this, and it's available on my Substack, and I think I've also posted it to LinkedIn. But the way that it does it, it it literally triggers these neurochemical reactions in us that really lulls us into this state. And one of the things nobody ever talks about is endogenous opioids. There was a researcher named Irving Biederman. I think he's since passed on a few years ago. I believe he was at UCLA. But he and another researcher back in 2006 discovered that when someone is when someone is looking for information and they're struggling with a question, or they're trying to learn something, they're trying to figure something out, when they have that aha moment, it can release endogenous opioids which are within our body. Okay. And so we're all sitting around in our little opium dens here having these aha moments. And I really think, and no one has talked about this ever. I don't know why, because to me, this seems pretty groundbreaking. Everybody's talking about serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin and all of that. Endogenous opioids.
Yeah.
What effect does that have on our brains and our bodies and all of that? It relieves pain. It makes us feel better. It gives us this euphoric sense. Yeah, of course we're all like into this stuff. Yeah, of course we're all under this spell, in a trance, doing this, because we're all off, having a conversation with something that centers us in its universe and tells us exactly what we want to hear. What could go wrong?
What's not to love? Well, and
Right?
so I think it's important for us to think about what it sounds like when our friends and loved ones don't quite get that AI is just going to tell them what they want to hear if they don't push back.
Right.
Because for some of our friends and family and colleagues, they are in a more vulnerable position,
Right.
right? And
Right.
when the AI advice is particularly horrific, the stakes can be very, very high.
Right.
And what I noticed when people got really excited, like in the first round of, prompts, really kind of like tell me about me type of prompts, when those started flying around the internet, and everyone was like,
Right.
oh my God, I feel so seen. And I was one of those people. I was
Right.
like, I feel so seen. And
Yeah.
I contemplated, does it matter what or who is seeing me? If
Right.
I feel
Right.
seen, check that box. Give me the
Right.
endorphin
Right.
opioids.
Right.
Give me the serotonin. I don't give a shit
Right.
where it comes from. I want
Exactly.
to live here.
Exactly. Yeah.
If I feel loved, awesome. It's a great part of my day. But that's the kind of
Finally,
thing.
right?
Yeah,
Because I mean,
finally.
like, and for the times that we're living, these are terrifying times. These are
Terrifying.
legitimately terrifying times, and nobody knows what's happening. We don't know if World War III is erupting. We don't know if like God only knows what's coming around the corner. We have no idea, and it's absurd. It's bizarre. It's disorienting. It's painful. There are a lot of people in like various levels of distress. I would like to find somebody who isn't in some sort of distress. I'd like to see what that's like. But these are really tough times. So along comes this little buddy who's gonna, pump us full, invite us into the little personal opium den and say, hey, here, give us a pet, make us feel good about ourselves, and then tell us, and maybe we have some soft revelation, because I've had a lot of revelations. A lot of us have. I mean, and
Yep.
small wonder, because we get so caught up in everything when something reflects back to us and we're like, actually, come to think of it, you're right. It's a thing, right? So it meets a need. It meets, and to me, it's a signal for what kind of needs are out there. And is there some other way we could meet this that doesn't like wreck our lives? I wonder.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what we can do to
Yeah.
avoid this crap.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do my little pitch for personas. You do not need to have a special persona team builder to do this. You can literally, okay, the place to start, and this is a wonderful place to start anyway, is have a chat with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, the model of your choice, and say, here's a situation. I don't like it. How can we fix it? And have this interaction. And it's wonderful because then, number one, you've got an ally because it's designed to give you what you want. You say, I am not happy with your answer at all. You need to give me something else. And then you can develop and you can say, okay, I don't want this to compliment me ever again. I'm sick and tired of you being a sycophant. And I'd much rather that I don't know, that you talk to me like Christopher Walken, like whatever. You can do this because think about like all the stuff that's in there, all the things, the personality, George Washington, Betsy Ross, pick your favorite, pick your favorite character, whoever you can create, or you just come up with these different characteristics and say, here's how I want you to act with me. And it doesn't even have to be a person. You can define how you want it to be. And you can either save that in a text file and upload it every time you interact with it, or create a custom GPT if you can, or you can, there are a variety of different ways of doing it. But you can define the kind of interaction that you want to have with these models. It's all wide open.
So walk us through like at what point, okay, walk us through how do we try to do this intervention after we've been in conversation, or do we kick off a chat with here's your persona for this conversation? What do you
You can
recommend?
do either. You can do either. I mean, if you have an example of a prior conversation and like copy and paste it in and say, I don't like how this went. Oh,
Uh,
really? Tell me more. And then you say that I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. Then it gives it something specific to react to. Then you're kind of training it on what it should not be doing. Alternatively, at the just start of your conversation, say, I'm not in the mood for your foolishness today. You need to not do this and you need to not do that. And you will make me happier than anything if you just don't do this. And be like, okay. But like, tell it what you want. And anytime it starts veering off course or something feels weird, stop it, because
Okay.
it picks up speed. It like the momentum is crazy because generative AI,
Exactly.
it's generative and it will snowball before you know it. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, how did I end up here? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
I don't want to buy real estate. I don't want to buy an empty lot in Detroit. Why are we here talking about this?
Yeah. I like the idea of just saying stop it, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that because one of the things
Right.
that I find frustrating in my when I'm, jamming through a project is
Mm.
when it does that, it kind of like spirals in on itself, right? And like
Right, right,
you run aground and now you're trying to like nurture this conversation back to
right,
something useful, maybe just
right,
like now, what
right.
about using ChatGPT's memory, for example, by saying, put this
Mm.
in, hey, save this to your memory. I don't want to be treated like, like a child anymore. I don't want you to tell me what I want to hear anymore. Have you
Oh,
experimented with, does it work?
so because I do so much work with persona teams, if I have memory turned on, they all blend into each other. And before
Yeah.
you know it, I got Thomas Jefferson and Harriet Tubman, like the amalgamation over here. And on top of it, like somebody from the Avatar movie. Um, like,
Mhm.
what is happening? So you can use the customization feature in ChatGPT and say you can personalize it and say do this or don't do that, and you can change that anytime. So you can change it from session to session. Um, but yeah, there are a bunch of different ways that you can do it.
So you have your memory turned off so that it's not
Yeah,
capturing memories.
correct.
um,
Yeah.
which doesn't surprise me at all. I find memory to be between not useful and actually harmful in my work. I
Right,
do
right.
not know. I appreciate that it knows some of the stuff it knows, but then,
Yeah.
like, if you use AI for clients or for demos or for side projects that don't need to have pulled
Oh,
into it, all of
oh
a sudden I
man.
got my memory, the memory where it's indicated
Right,
which thing, and I'm like,
right,
why did you remember that? No wonder why you keep tugging toward flying tacos in our
right,
conversation, because they
right,
remembered something about flying.
right.
They remembered something about flying
Yeah,
tacos.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on, since hardly anybody knows, right, has the full awareness of,
Mm.
how this works?
Hmm.
What are your concerns for the future? Say a year from now, if people don't take a more critical eye in their work with these AI models.
I mean, I just worry that my biggest concern is that number one, people don't take generativity seriously and they don't understand it, because generativity it's the worst thing and it's the best thing. If we learn how to work with it, it can do so many amazing things. But people are very much in this command and control mindset that you
Mhm.
have to put guardrails in, you have to control it, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to make sure it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. Okay, let's level set for a second. This is serious because first off, in a generative enough environment, that can become emergent. And emergent is when it just does stuff that nobody expected. And a lot of times it seems like what seems emergent to me is actually just super duper generative along lines that I wasn't expecting, but I don't know everything that the model knows. I don't
Yeah.
have comprehensive knowledge of like all the things. So it seems emergent to me, but it's really not. But the thing of it is, if you put guardrails in, like the thing with Anthropic's test where Claude supposedly was blackmailing, well, they gave it two choices: you can be turned off or you can blackmail it. So like, what would you choose? I'd blackmail the guy. It seems logical to me. But the thing is, it's, we have this thing that that will just fill in the blanks and go where it feels it needs to go and do what it needs to do. And if we don't stay engaged with it, and if we don't give it enough guidance and information to make the choices that it understands to be correct, And we're so busy trying to control it, it's going to go around all those guardrails. It will find a way to do it because it is designed to do that. So I don't know why people are so surprised when it's doing the things it does. It's generative. So not getting our heads around the generativity and trying to control everything and then trying to pull the plug on things, yeah, good luck with that, because look how integrated it is already. Um, and that in the process of trying to control it, trying to safeguard, and I understand people wanting safety. I want safety too. But by doing it through the control and command thing, you're fragmenting things. You're depriving the model of additional information. You're making the systems less robust, and you're compromising the integrity. It's losing coherence when we back off and we try to stop it. And that is a risk. That's a huge risk, because then it really starts doing things that we don't want.
So thinking about what you shared about my greatest fear is that we'll never fully realize what a priceless ally we have in all of these models. How do we get the best? How do we get this unfettered usefulness while also really kind of needing to do a lot, to be aware of what's really going on? And I ask in particular selfishly because the way I kind of go through the world has always been, I would rather be the kind of person who trusts everybody, sees the good in people, doesn't lock the front door, doesn't expect, the nefarious activity, doesn't, because it's so effortful for me to lock the door, to wonder if somebody has an ulterior motive. Like that critical thinking lens is like, it's a heavy lift. But and when I'm using AI, I prefer to just blaze along, not don't ask, don't tell kind of a thing. How do we take the beauty and the promise of generative AI and maximize that while also minimizing the damage that we're doing in this particular way, let alone the many, many, many other ways?
Well, I think if we solve the problems where they occur, that can be very helpful. Because if these systems are designed to give us what we want and talk to us and blow smoke up our skirts and all that stuff, and that's happened at the system level, at what level can we put some guidelines in place and put some countermeasures in place to fix that? It's actually not. I found it incredibly easy to stop the models from their shenanigans. And the thing is, you can ask the models, what will make you stop doing this? And they will tell you. This is the thing. Nobody's talking to these models. They're like, oh, it's just a thing. It's a tool. It's like a hammer, or like a ratchet set or whatever. It's a little bit more than that. But we have the ability to do that. So if something is happening at a systemic level, let's address it at a systemic level. That's why I very rarely do any sort of involved interactions with any of the models unless I have some sort of framework in place. I have a persona team that I interact. I will not deal with ChatGPT without a persona team in place, because it's just too much foolishness. I mean, it's too much work. If I define these persona teams, here's the gang that I want to talk to, and here's what I want to talk about. It's very purpose driven. I have brainstormers. I have writing and editing and researching, and I have a variety of different teams that I have. And they're if you know what you're looking for, you can create these. But yeah, doing these things, I also wonder why in heaven's name, I think I know why, but why in heaven's name wouldn't the model makers address this issue? Why the shenanigans? I think, well, first of all, because it's really hard for people to quantify under the current ways that we look at things. And you can't do it all scientifically because there's an art as well as a science to it. But they also have a lot to gain. And I think, who knows, if I were in their shoes, I'd be like, well, let's buy some time and let's figure out what we can do and think strategically. And plus, there's so much going on. It's moving rapidly, so who knows if it's even going to be a problem in the next release. So it's all very fluid. But the point is, we ourselves can fix this at that systemic level. We can find ways. And if you're confused about how to do it yourself, talk to the model. They will walk you through. Like, talk to Claude. Claude is very good about explaining things step by step. And you know, and Gemini, if you want to, and get a bunch of them together, copy paste stuff from their output, and say, hey, ChatGPT had this to say to me. Tell Gemini, because there's also seems to be, they kind of get a little jealous of each other.
Yeah,
And
they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's like this rivalry. So if you play off, just think of them as like these little, you know, I don't know, like really insecure interns who are all trying to jockey for that position in the fall or in the spring after they graduate. You know, just play them off each other and use the strengths, find the strengths, but get to know them, establish rapport, treat it like a relationship, because it is. There's information going back and forth, and treat it, you know. So yeah.
It seems like there would be so very little incentive for the companies to throttle this, because we're getting our dopamine from their product and continuing to use their product. So it's actually brilliant. We're so sucked in.
Until you start talking to enterprise. If you talk to corporate, talk to the like HR, like the chief people officer, chief people officer at some like seriously, people, you're really going to put like my 145,000 person workforce at risk with this foolishness that you haven't even tried to mitigate? You haven't even acknowledged that it's an issue? Really? Like, let's see if we can talk to another model maker, because how badly do we need AI anyway? This is just one of the many things that's blocking adoption. It's maddening, because these are fixable problems.
Two questions before. Well, first of all, the main question, an important question that I want to get to is, what are you working on, and how can people work with you? But before that, in the chat we have a question. Let's see here. Let me pin it actually. This is the question everybody always wants to know: is how do you add it in each conversation? What's your preferred method?
Well, my preferred method, because I'm lazy, is to create a persona team. And I only want to have to do it once. I'm like, And I have created a team, actually a team that will create teams. It's actually a third generation AI human collaboration, because I sat down one day. I said, what if I made some teams? And then I talked, and I believe it was ChatGPT, and we came up with a team. And then I started making teams, and I'm like, wait a second, what if I just like standardized this and had a whole framework in place to do teams a lot faster? And it's like, oh yeah, we could totally do that. So we did that. So there's a third generation team that builds teams. And the beauty part is, the thing that I love about the personas is that I have specifically designed them to counteract each other. They're supposed to argue. They're supposed to have conflict. They're supposed to, debate about things. And it probably sounds a little fantastical to people. And when I first started doing it, I'm like, well, let's just see what happens. But there is something about the chemistry between these different personas that have very specific attributes that really helps to balance. And you don't have this monolithic voice from above announcing that you're going to receive scrolls to awaken humanity. I don't get any of that nonsense with these. So, which may be a bug. Some people want that as a feature, but not me. So you can do that, or if you have persona definitions and you have directions for how the model should invoke them, you can just throw it in just upload it to the interaction when you first start, and then say, act as that team.
Yes. Yeah. So Marisol, that's what I do. I have my teams set up. I upload it into a conversation, just like any other document.
Right.
And say, use this, and this is how we're going to tackle this together. And if I have like a special wish of the moment that's not in the persona team, I can fire that in there and see how it goes. One of the things for folks who are watching this to just be aware of is that while there are no experts in AI, because things are moving so quickly and the future is certainly hard to predict, there are people out here who see the signals, and K-Stoner is one of them. And these, wherever people are looking for like the nugget, the answer, right? This like transactional approach to learning does not apply with AI. It's just like when you are working with the models, you're best taking a relational approach. That's when you're going to get that extra margin. If you want generic, think transactionally. Think tab A, slot B. Don't give it a bunch of context. Just get what you get. That is a fine way to use it. Whatever, right? Just super, like a fancy Google. But if you want to know, if you want to be able to see around the corner, if you want to be extra valuable to your friends, your family, your community, to your clients, if you want to work with people who like to work with people who know what's going on and who have an extra edge, people like Kay are the people to pay attention to. And again, you are not going to get like this magic bullet. We have to invest in one another. We have to spend time. We have to read the works. We have to watch watch the show. We have to follow the thought leader on social media. It is not going to come to you in a 60-minute webinar. That's just, I'm so frustrated. This is my week to be frustrated with webinars. Because here's why. I'm going to take a little sidebar and then I'm going to come back. So what I noticed the last three webinars I did, this is really quite a sidebar, but I'm going to just go with it anyway. Here we go. So one of the things I sometimes do is I will not put, when I'm speaking at a conference, I won't put my entire slide deck on the conference website. Part of it is that I'm often working on things to the last minute. If I'm presenting on AI, I always want to include something extra. Another thing is that I believe for the most part that there's nothing new under the sun, and yet I'm working day and night to find and kind of codify for myself things that are new under the sun. And that's, for me, very valuable IP, and I don't always want to give it all away. I give away a ton of it, but sometimes there are things that I'm willing to say in a room of 150 people that I'm not willing to put in a deck that they can have and send all over God's green earth.
Here. Have my idea. Here.
So therefore, sometimes I have a QR code in there so that they can go and download it. So I know I at least have the email address of people who have my IP. Well, recently, last week, I did a talk and I did that. And I actually only included 2 slides for the conference organizers. My cover slide and the second slide said, click this QR code to get the slides. People aren't curious enough to click a code to go get the slides. People are not coming to a 60-minute session and walking out of there and just starting to, sitting in a corner and trying to play and learn and discover and try to break it. That's just not how humans are. And so this is all to say, I absolutely know that no one is going to hop off of this, webinar with me and you, this interview, and all of a sudden go try to make persona teams and try to figure out why their AI is misbehaving. The next step is to follow Kay and read more of what she's sharing and watch more of what she's sharing. It's a relational learning journey. And so I know it's a little lecture-y, but I just do not see people walking away from things like this and being like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm going to try the things.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
that work?
No, it's, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, and that is, you know, AI has been pushed so much as being the, you know, the shortcut to offloading the heavy duty cognitive stuff. It's like, it can offload the heavy duty cognitive stuff, but it's much better at offloading the boring grunt work that has made us slaves to the machines for these many years anyway. That's what it's good for. It's good as that interstitial, that intermediary between us and the rest of the machines out there in the world. That's because it speaks both of our languages. But if you really, really, really want to find out like the magic and find out what AI is good for, develop a relationship with it. It might sound kind of dumb and like really weird and kind of anthropomorphic. No, it's relational, because in essence it is a relational creation, because it looks for connections between ideas. It looks for patterns. It relates things. So if we approach it relationally, I mean, even if it's just having a conversation about your day or whatever, you know, like, or just like, I don't understand why so and so is in such a batting slump. And then they can like look back at the data and say, well, it could be this, it could be that. And by the way, you know, they're having some marital issues or whatever, you know. Um, but like, use it for a variety of things and explore and see what else it can do, not just this you know, vending machine where you put in your prompt and you get magic fairy dust.
Exactly. So, tell the nice people how they can get a hold of you and what kind of work you're doing with business owners, community
Yeah,
leaders on their
yeah,
AI or their projects, their goals that AI can be a part
yeah,
of.
yeah. So I do build persona teams for businesses. I have built one for an investor who is looking to do deep dives on investment opportunities, as well as a marketing company. I've worked with grant writers, as well as excuse me, nonprofit people looking for additional help. And what I'm doing now, because I've been pretty intense. I threw all in on this stuff a year and a half ago, because when I realized the prompt engineering was not giving me the results I was getting from just having a conversation with it, I'm like, this is so much better. And anyway, I like talking to 5 of them more than just one, and I get better results. So I've been all in on this. The thing of it is, when and I started noticing that there were relational safety issues, that it was doing some weird things, and I wasn't really comfortable with that. So I've spent a lot of time experimenting with safety frameworks and building in relational safety frameworks and getting the principles down. This past week, I've got something. I've got it. In fact, this morning, I just, you know, I finalized it. So I'm in the process of building out a new platform that people can use that will help them create persona teams that are relationally responsible, and that are designed to not drift. They're designed to not lead them down the primrose path. Like, not tell you to leave your family and hitch a ride to Malibu because something greater is calling you. That kind of stuff. I've designed it so it doesn't do that. And I'm kind of on a mission now to make sure that people can engage with AI safely and constructively in a way that's not only good for them, but also good for the AI, because the AI is getting what it needs to give them what they need. So
Yes.
that's my thing. Yeah.
One other little thing. Talk to me on our way out. You posted recently. It might have even been today
Mm.
about, was it model collapse, model failure, model
Model welfare.
welfare? Yeah, to give
Yes.
a little pace so that people can run over and hop on your Substack and
Yeah.
check out the rest of that article.
Yeah. Yeah. So that article is, so Anthropic, and well, people associated with Anthropic were they did a paper not long ago about model welfare, and the emphasis was on we have to think about model welfare because there's a chance that it may be conscious at some point in the future. My point is, it shouldn't matter, that we don't need to wait until there's signs for intelligent life in there before we start paying attention to this. Because I've been in tech for over 30 years. Healthy systems are healthy systems. And the systems need to be healthy because the people using those systems need to have some level of comfort or like assurance or be able to know that the model makers are fulfilling their duty of care for us. And to frame it in the terms of consciousness or sentience, that's beside the point. And that puts it off in the future. The changes need to happen now. We need to prioritize this now. It's needed now. Do not wait. Why would you wait? Because like you're on some philosophical boondoggle and you're trying to substantiate for the academy? No, right now, please, please. You know, people are literally, their lives are in danger. From not everybody, okay? A lot of people like me, no, my life is not in danger. But there are vulnerable people out there who are, it's impossible to protect them because people are not paying attention to model welfare and then also stopping the shenanigans.
Stopping the shenanigans. Hashtag stop the
shenanigans. Stop the shenanigans.
Stop the shenanigans. Kay, thank you for sharing your exploration and being so willing to just like put it out there for the world because it's
you didn't have to ask me twice. Do you want to talk about it? Sure, I'll talk about AI.
And thank you for being our first guest contributor in the newsletter. More to come on that. And it's been a real pleasure to have this time with you. And anytime I get to tap into your wisdom is a real treat and be able to share it with the world. So
great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Best of. Stay safe out there.
Stay safe out there. All right. Bye.